So imagine that you're watching Strictly Come Dancing and you're watching the worst performance you have ever seen, yet still the people who are performing are sort of looking around elated. They're the best they've ever felt, wiping sweat off their head, waiting anxiously to hear what the judges have to say, for example. The chest is lifted, they're hot and they're sweaty, but they still feel proud and accomplished. They have this unfaltering sense of optimism, and they have a look about them that says everything is great despite being on the downward slope of their career. Now, why is this? The answer is in early human history. It's only the last 7% of human history that extensive and vigorous daily exercise has been a choice. Before that, it was essential. We had to gather food and we had to hunt. But the effort did not necessarily guarantee reward. You could, for example, venture out and come back with nothing after hours of vigorous exercise. The act of hunting and gathering, therefore, had to be rewarding in itself, because if it wasn't, we wouldn't try in the first place, and those individuals who didn't try would have died out and not passed on their genes. So once again, think about the Strictly Come Dancing competitor looking around, anxiously waiting for the judges to tell them how well they've done. Worst dance ever. Doesn't even know that they're staying in the competition or not, yet elated nonetheless, because the effort was rewarding in itself. And at that point in time, they are the epitome of mental health. They have a state of optimism about them, they're happy, they're elated, they're high on life. Now, the question is, what does this mean for us? Now, just like sex, if we have to do it, we might as well make it pleasurable to do so then we do it more often. And then our genes, once again, are passed down because we're rewarding the behavior, not just the outcome, which might be creating babies, for example. We have evolved to have a very beneficial relationship with exercise, as well as improving our heart and our joints and our bone health. It hugely benefits our mental health. Runners, for example, suffer with depression at 40% lower, or a 40% lower rate than non-runners. Maya, our Gravesend-based revitalized personal trainer, says that she doesn't have one client that hasn't benefited mentally from training with her. In fact, most of her Gravesend and online personal training clients started with her to improve their mental health. This was at least one part or one reason of many reasons why they started to train with her. The next thing that we have to explore as to why we enjoy exercise and why exercise is so good for our mental health is the relationship between exercise and dopamine and serotonin. Next time that you're in our Gravesend clinic, watch our personal training clients enter and leave the gym, and you'll notice that they leave smiling, high on life. Remember what I said, that they need, or we have, a reward for the effort, not necessarily just the outcome. So for example, you want to fit in that dress, or you want to get down to this certain weight, but if the process isn't rewarding in itself, you might not necessarily get to the desired outcome. So it's the same even for our modern day goals as well. And this is where dopamine and serotonin come in. They make us feel good. They're also released when we drink alcohol and when we eat junk food, which is partly why these foods are so addictive. This is also why many of our Gravesend personal training clients eat far less junk food when they're in their ongoing training program with our personal trainers. They're essentially filling up their pleasure meter or their pleasurometer with exercise rather than unhealthy eating choices. Now, it might take some weeks to get into exercise before you start to build this healthy hormonal relationship with it, where you can start to achieve a natural high. So be patient, it might come straight away, or it might take a little bit longer to develop that kind of relationship. But the moral of the story is that after a few weeks of continuous effort, exercise makes us feel great purely for the effort or the process of doing it. And this helps us to battle a vast array of mental health issues, for example, depression, anxiety, but as we'll now start to discover, a lot of other mental health issues for the following reasons. So we're going to explore sublimation and displacement, which was a psychological term, or they are psychological terms, first popularized by Sigmund Freud, who is the founding father of psychology. Now, we have to start by talking about the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind, the part of the mind that we're not really aware of, can be a very dark place. Often people who are very peaceful and calm on the outside can be very aggressive or violent underneath. or they may have the drive to dominate, throw, destroy, etc. Sublimation is where we take these socially unacceptable drivers and channel them through a socially acceptable behavior or a socially acceptable method. For example, the person who is violent enjoys boxing. The person who likes to destroy enjoys throwing around sandbags. One who is driven to dominate wants to win in races or gain personal bests, for example. The person who likes to get dirty and messy might not be good for them to leave their house in that way, but if they do a mud run or something like that, they can channel that unconscious urge in a socially acceptable and rewarding way. Now, if we didn't channel these unconscious drivers, we might cause harm to ourselves or other people. Exercise can enable us to channel these drives in a socially acceptable and therapeutic way, once again benefiting our mental health. I was actually talking to a friend not long ago who had this really unfortunate split with his girlfriend and he wanted her back. She lived 13 miles away. He ran 13 miles to her house, sublimating his drive to want to be with her, and then he ran back, which was therapeutically enabling him to let go. So if he had, for example, turned up at her house and screamed, "I want you back," for example, this wouldn't be a socially acceptable way to sublimate his deep emotional urges. But he was then able to take that emotion and channel it through in a socially acceptable, very challenging, rewarding way, and then the run back enabled him to therapeutically let go of her. So displacement is where we take just general negative tendencies and direct them into something else. So for example, it's slightly different to sublimation. Displacement is where we might develop tension throughout the working week in our working environment, and exercise can help us to displace and release these emotional tensions that we have. And the last way that exercise can help our mental health is grounding. Anyone who has suffered from poor mental health may notice themselves feeling increasingly distant from the world. This can develop into disassociation, which is where your perception of reality shifts. You may experience hallucinations or the feeling that you're dreaming, that, for example, life isn't real. Life doesn't feel real at that time. You might look at your hand and not think that it's yours. The walls might bend, for example. So these kind of very elusive hallucinations. Grounding is a remedy for this, and it's where we act on our environment to pull us back into reality. And exercise is a great example of exercising power over our environment. For example, our Gravesend-based personal trainers, who are available online and face-to-face, will often guide the session to slightly enable their clients to ground themselves, get them back in the zone, back in reality. Now this might be, for example, putting on some music that they enjoy. It could be lifting weights, hitting pads, or hitting pads, etc., to ground them in the present, getting them out of their head and interactive with their reality in a beneficial and constructive way. So the question is, how about your mental health? Have you wondered about how your mental health could really benefit from training? We're here to help. We offer 30-minute free consultations for anyone who wants to sit down and have a chat, online or face-to-face with any one of our personal trainers. And you might come in and you might say that I'm not in a very good place. I think that exercise might help. We have personal trainers who specialise in the mental health application of exercise, and if that's the case, you've got a safe place where you can come to chat online or face-to-face, and we would love to hear about what you've struggled with. We would love to hear about what you want to achieve, because that's what gets us going. So the bigger the problem that you come in with, the more amped and the more ready to go we are. So I hope that answers some of your questions as to how and why exercise is so beneficial for many people with mental health issues. If you've got any questions at all, then all you need to do is hashtag #AskL, comment below, send me a message, and I'll put across a descriptive, well-detailed, well-thought-out video to answer all of your questions. Thanks for watching.